Hi everyone. So this is the video that has the content we would have covered in class um, last night on Tuesday night if I would have been able to be there. Hopefully this is a good way to show you the information without worrying about getting any of you ill. I don't want to get any of you guys sick. So, alright, so we're going to finish up 3.2, and then if there's time I'm going to start on 3.3. So we already talked in 3.2 about how to construct truth tables. Now we're going to learn how to convert compound statements into variables. So that's the goal. Okay. So for the first example, let's look at this compound statement. Either we will buy a new smartphone, or we will buy a new computer. That should say buy. It's just, there we go. Buy a new computer. Okay. Alright. So what we want to do here, I'm going to change the color of my pen because that will be helpful for this. What we want to do here is we want to take this and we want to identify our two simple statements. Generally the best way to do this is to look for the conjunction. So here we have the conjunction or. So that means one of our simple statements is we will buy a new smartphone, and the other simple statement is we will buy a new computer. So the first thing to do is to, or I guess the second thing, the first thing is to identify the simple statements. The next thing to do is to give those simple statements variables. Okay. So I'm going to let the variable P be the statement we will buy a new smartphone. And I'm going to let Q be the simple statement we will buy a new computer. At this point, what we want to do is we want to use one of our operators, so that's the conjunction, disjunction, conditional, negation, things like that, in order to combine these statements. Well, we see here we have this or, and we know from previous classes that the or goes with the disjunction, which is the V-looking shape. So that means this sentence, either we will buy a new smartphone or we will buy a new computer, can be written as P or Q. And that's kind of crooked, but you guys can still see it. Okay. Alright, let's go to the next example. Oh, ignore that. Apparently I need to run CCleaner on my machine. Alright, so now let's look at if it rains and you don't put the convertible hood I would think that would be roof, but whatever. Hood up. The inside of your convertible will be wet. Alright, so this sentence actually has 3 parts. So I'm going to change colors here so we can show you the 3 parts. We have the word if, and we have the word and. So generally, whenever we have an if in a statement, it's that conditional, it's that if then. This sentence actually does not have the then part, but it's implied. So you could add a then right there. We could say, if it rains and you don't put the convertible hood up, then the inside of your convertible will be wet. Alright, so that's one thing to look for. If it says if, but there's no then, generally after the comma, you're going to have a then, because that's the result. Alright, so now in order to identify our 3 simple statements, we can look at what's between our connectors there, connector words. So I'm going to, let's try highlighting. I've never done this before. Let's see how this works. Alright, so it rains is one of our simple sentences. You don't put the convertible hood up is another one. And then the last one is going to be the inside of your convertible will be wet. Alright, so for each of these different colored regions, we have to assign a variable. So I'm going to let P be the statement, it rains. I'm going to let Q be the statement, you don't put the convertible, that should say convertible. I ran out of space on my writing pad. Hood up. And then we're going to let R be the inside of your convertible, and I'm just going to abbreviate that, gets wet. Okay, oops. Okay, there we go. Alright, so now that we have all of our variables, we can start applying our operators. So here, since we have an and we have the if-then part, we know we're going to need the 2 operators. This one's for the and part, and this one is for the if-then part. But we just need to decide where they go. So let's look back at the sentence and try to decide. So if it rains and you don't put the convertible hood up, then the inside of your convertible will be wet. Alright, so we can automatically see that the and should be between statements P and Q. So let's start with that. Okay. So we have that so far. Now we need to decide where to put our conditional symbol. So generally a good rule of thumb is you put your conditional symbol where the then is. So that means our conditional symbol is going to be after our statement Q, because as you can see here, the then comes after the light blue part, and that was our Q statement. So that means I'm going to put implies R. But I'm not done yet, because as you can see, it doesn't say if it rains, then the inside of your convertible will get wet. And it doesn't say if you don't put the convertible hood up, then the inside of your convertible will get wet. It says if you do both of those together, if it rains and at the same time you don't put the convertible hood up, then the inside of your convertible will get wet. So that means those things need to be looked at as 2 things that happen together. So that means we want to put parentheses around them, because that shows that both of those things must be true in order for R to happen, where the inside of your convertible gets wet. Alright, so let's look at another example here. Oh, having trouble here with my cursor. if Meg doesn't pass, she will lose her scholarship and drop out of school. Okay. So first, let's identify our operators here. So we have an if, and we have an and. All right, so that means that we know the symbols we're eventually going to have to use are going to be an and symbol and a conditional. Again, this example leaves off the then, but since the consequence of her not passing is she will lose her scholarship and drop out of school, we can understand the then goes right there. All right, so now I'm going to use underlining this time. We can underline our simple sentences. So the first one is Meg doesn't pass. The second one is she will lose her scholarship. And the third one is drop out of school. All right, so in the previous example, I'm going to scroll up so you guys can see it. You can see here for Q, we said you don't put the convertible hood up. And we just made that Q directly. And that's completely fine. That's an option. But something that I see a lot in books is they don't really like negative statements. When you're talking about simple statements. So what they will do is they will take a negative statement, write it as the positive, and then use our negation symbol in order to negate it. So let me show you what that looks like. So here, I'm going to let P be my first simple statement. So it says Meg doesn't pass. So that has the word not in it. So that means it's a negation of something. So that means that what I'm going to let P be is Meg does pass. Some people prefer it written like this, which is why I'm showing you. So if on Hawks, you do something different, it throws a fit, you'll know why. All right, so Meg does pass. And then we're going to let Q be she will lose her scholarship. And R is equal to she will drop out of school. All right, so now in order to construct this sentence using variables, what we want to do is first we need to make sure that, let's see, how do we want to do this? What would be the best? Let's go ahead and negate P first. So here in our sentence it says Meg doesn't pass, but our P says Meg does pass. So in order to get the statement Meg doesn't pass, we want to take the negation of P. All right, so that's negation of P is the opposite of Meg passing, so that's Meg not passing. All right, so now, as you can see, I'm going to scroll up a little bit so you can see. We want to put the conditional where the then word would be. So I'm going to go ahead and put that after not P. And then if she doesn't pass, two things happen at the same time. She will lose her scholarship and she will drop out of school. So since both of those happen together, we want to put them in parentheses. So Q, she will lose her scholarship, and R, she will drop out of school. All right, let's look at another example. If I do not study, then I will not understand the material. All right, so in this one, we can see we have the operator if then, and this one actually has the word then in it, so that's nice for us. And that's actually the only things we have. So that means we can underline our simple sentences between the operators, which is I do not study and I will not understand the material. So here I'm going to continue with the idea that generally we want our simple statements, or more standard, to have our simple statements be positive. So I'm going to let P be the simple statement I study, because that's the positive form of I do not study. I'm going to let Q be the simple statement I understand, or I will understand. Let me add that in there. Sorry. I will understand the material. All right, so here we know that we're going to use the conditional operator because we have if then. So that means that we want the first statement to say, I do not study. Well, P says I study, so we're going to have to negate that to make it I do not study. We can put our arrow where the word then is. So the arrow is going to go there. And then Q is I will understand the material. But what we want to say is I will not understand the material. So that means we're going to negate Q. So not P implies not Q. All right, well that's all we're going to cover for today, and then we will start working on 3.3 on Thursday. Hope you guys have a good day.